Welcome to another Well Workplaces podcast. I'm Tom Bosner, your host, and today I'm chatting with Poppy Griffiths once again. Poppy, how are you?
I'm great, Tom. How are you? Lovely to be here.
Yeah, good. You weren't sick of me last week. I didn't scare you off
Back.
with all of our. Yeah, it's good to be back. Good to see you again. Today we're chatting around managing time, energy, and also creating great habits as a working parent. The whole idea of managing time again, just an example this morning was just feeling almost like I'm starting work really late is kind of a common thing for me on a Tuesday, and that's because I'm not going into the office. But kind of just an example of how sometimes as a working parent you feel like you're chasing your tail in some ways, and sometimes as well with starting a bit late, it kind of mucks around with your energy or feeling like you're starting late as well. So I'd be really interested in sort of diving into this a little bit further and just sort of, I guess, trying to find some or pick your brain for finding some of those tips and tricks for creating good habits, also as a working parent. So where do you think is a good place to start here, Poppy?
Look, great. I think time, energy, habits, they're all good topics for working parents. I think on the time front, like how can we take a step back really as a working parent and assess if we're actually spending our time and energy in a way that serves us well? Because I think often we skip this and we consciously don't think enough about it. If you're happy to start there, let's go with time.
Absolutely. Let's.
On a personal level, I know when we talk, I used to leave work at 4 p.m. Every Tuesday. So coming back to your sort of starting late, I used to finish my day early and I used to travel 50 minutes, pick up my oldest child and take her to gym training. And I really moved mountains at work to make this happen because it was important to me. And when I used to arrive at gym, my daughter was totally indifferent about me being there and her even being at gym. And I tell you what, it used to frustrate me beyond belief. And I personally felt quite stressed about it and quite underappreciated really about the whole situation. And I have no doubt there's probably many working parents listening thinking, oh yeah, I've been in that similar situation. And I think as working parents, we really do place really high expectations on ourselves to be effective and to be making these great contributions to our kids, and making the best use of our limited time. And when we actually misuse that time at work or with our family, it can feel like such a double failure. When kids are growing, I always say the demands and the complexities, as we all know, they change. They're growing and they're changing. And we as parents really need to ensure that we're spending our time, our parenting time and our energy in the right ways, so that we're really triaging, I guess, those feelings of stress and being underappreciated. There's probably two really simple concepts that I talk to working parents by way of, a coaching methodology. And it's really about prioritizing your contributions and your passions. And there's a really simple exercise. To do this, we basically need to think of one of our children at a time. So only, if you've got multiple kids, just think about one of them at a time. And think about these two questions. So from a contribution, what of the activities that I do and the tasks that I perform as a parent provide my child value and the most value right now? So that is all about the child's value and what you're doing to contribute to that value. And the second one is passion. So which activities, ask yourself what activities or the types of support that I give my child give me the most motivation or the most energy as a parent. Your contribution to a child as a parent, and also as a parent, what your passions are. It's really important to be considering both of these when we're thinking about time and energy.
Beautiful. Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I guess makes me think about the parents that are committed their child to every extracurricular activity, and kind of overdoing that. So that exercise sounds quite like a really simple way of doing it. And imagine if you have multiple children like yourself. You have 3 kids, don't you, Poppy?
I do, Tom. I've got an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. So yes, I'm in the thick of, I guess you call it young kids. And I often am thinking about this time and energy, or, how can I make time and energy count? Because I know personally I often feel, at conflict with how I'm best spending the time and where my energy is going.
Yeah, that's you're well qualified to be talking about this. Obviously, I'm wondering with that. Then, are there any easy techniques that working parents can use to understand, I guess, what they should be doing more of and maybe less of? And I'm imagining out of the exercise of thinking contributions and passions. But is there an easy, I guess, technique to kind of also think, what do I add and what do I subtract out of my efforts as a parent?
Yeah, there is. There's this, I call it the 2x2 quadrant. And again, I use this with the people that I coach and whom a lot are working parents. It's great if we have a piece of paper, but I will do it with my hands. Picture basically a 2x2 quadrant. So it's really helpful to draw like a horizontal axis, vertical axis, have passions on one, contributions on the other, and then obviously break it up so that you've got 2 quadrants where you can look at your high contributions and your low contributions again, and your high passions and your low passions. And I think why we do this is it gives a really visual picture around which things am I doing that are high contributions and high passions, because that's your sweet spot of parenting time. So you think about all the activities that you've got going on and plot them on that 2x2 and look at what's in that, I call it quadrant 1, where there's high contributions and high passions. These are the activities that are going to be adding lots of value for your child, and they also give you an energy. Or you get, they give you an energy boost. So this is really where your child will be getting those contributions, and you'll also have the passion. And I often say this is actually where the best bonding with our kids will happen. So we really need to prioritize that high contributions, high passion. Likewise, in the quadrant 2, which I often say is where it's high contribution, so your child may really value what you're doing, but it really zaps your energy. So you've got low passion. And this is tricky because this is where our kids have needs and they see the value. But as I said, they're totally draining our energy. So, I often say, can you consider resources here that can help you? Does your partner love doing something that you can't stand? Is a school friend taking their child to the same activity, and could they take your child also? So think about where you can actually draw on some resources. The big one, the danger zone, as I say, is where there's like low value to your child, but you have this tremendous energy and passion. And I think we've all done this, where we're so passionate about something and it means so little to our child, which was the gymnastics story in my case. Our kids' desires and needs, they're always changing as they grow. And we can find ourselves engaging in activities that we love, but have really waned for our kids over time. So we need to really set up regular checkpoints. I mean, I know ourselves as a family, I actually sit with our kids each term and we discuss the term ahead. It's an open conversation and we really trim out what's not hitting the mark and adding value to their lives. And we try and prioritize that high value. And I think the only last thing I'd add is quadrant 4, where it's like boom, boom for everything, like low contributions, low passion. It's just simple. Stop these things, prune them out of your life. Now, I think so often we bang our heads and just keep going with the things we've always done. And it's a time and an energy zapper.
Yeah, and I imagine with that quadrant as well, maybe it starts off being, a good contributor, and then as the kids age, or their interests change as well, and it really goes down into that bottom corner, dwindling away until someone does something about it.
Yeah, you're right, Tom. I mean, we have to absolutely hit the nail on the head. We have to, I guess, evolve with our kids as they get older. I think that even could be in a time frame of 3 or 6 months. We sometimes just get stuck in what we're doing, and this causes us such stress and frustration when we don't need to be engaging in the things that aren't giving our kids or us joy.
Yeah. I love the quadrant exercise. I think for the listeners, that'd be a great exercise to get done, especially if you are feeling a bit like you're running around in circles some days, and maybe lacking management of time, perhaps, or just having a bit of an energy mismatch on some days. It could be a great exercise for a lot of the listeners. Poppy, I'm wondering if we can talk about another part of all of this is creating habits, and there's a lot that's been said about habits, creating habits, how to do it, and all that kind of thing. Naturally, as parents, we've got some really good ones probably that we do, or we practice every day, and then there's probably some ordinary ones. What do you think around healthy habits? Why is it so important? And also, how can we kind of work on creating new ones or phasing out bad habits?
Yeah, good habits. I mean, healthy habits, as I say, it's so important. And I think when we're talking about like time and energy, like we are, habits is, it comes top of the equation, and it's a very important discussion for working parents, and really for anyone that's looking to improve their performance and their well-being. In the realm of habits, and a lot of listeners, I'm sure, will know of James Clear. He's my total go-to on all things habits. He is a total habit guru. He's spent basically his whole career since uni studying and sharing with the world super practical strategies that are, really grounded in science, but really helpful to master our habits. And I think, drawing on this as working parents, we often get caught in unhelpful habits that seem impossibly huge to try and change, and we have no headspace for it, and we're always looking for quick wins, and we're putting ourselves to the bottom of the pile. And I think with habits, we also give up too easily on trying to be the better version of ourselves. And I use a little bit of, I guess, what I call my flicker of motivation, which does come from the wonderful James Clear, is that he says if you can actually get 1% better each day, you'll end up with results that are nearly 37 times better after 1 year. Now, all the mathematicians out there can work that out, 365 days, 1%. It essentially equates to 37 times better. And I think we often fall short on sticking to any habit change because, we just don't see these immediate results. If you think about like trying to build muscle at a gym or losing weight from eating healthier, we want to see results quickly. However, like money that multiplies through compounded interests, the effects of our habits multiply every day that we repeat them. And it's often only when we look back, 1, 2, 5 years that the value of our good habits and really the cost of our bad ones really becomes strikingly apparent.
Absolutely. What would be some just off the top of your head, or like with some of the parents that you work with, working parents, what would be some really common bad habits that maybe we shouldn't label them as good or bad, but let's call them unhelpful. What are some of the things that you think are the most common in that working parent sort of stage?
Yeah, I think a big one that always tends to come up in the equation is well-being. And for some people that can be mental well-being, for others it can be social well-being, or it can be physical well-being. And coming back to the time and energy equation, there's so many working parents that just say, I've got too much going on, I don't have enough time in the day, I don't have enough energy, everyone else needs me. And they're aware that they need to get better at looking after themselves, but they're not, they're not putting that first step in play. And a lot of the time it is that they want to exercise more, or they want to make more time to be more mindful, or to have more time to give back to the community and be involved in that social capacity with friends and their school families. And it often just can seem like a really hard task to start. Because they're putting themselves to the bottom of the pile. So a lot of the time the habits is actually, I talk about starting small. So, we talk about just even having a goal roadmap and what are some of those milestones. So, if improved well-being or physical well-being is, on your priority list, right, what are 1, 2, 3 actions that you're going to begin to instate from, this week or next week that's going to get you to start making small steps towards being more physically active.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think, it's one of those things, isn't it? A lot of people maybe they're often putting themselves to the bottom of the priority list, especially parents, putting the kids first, which is all well and good. But if you're not looking after yourself, you're not going to be showing up as your best self for your kids. So
Absolutely.
it makes me then think about the process of how to create a good habit. And you mentioned they're starting small, and the book the James Clear's Atomic Habits is a really good reference point. I would second that, the reference there that you're referring to. So what's the process of setting up or creating a good habit?
Yeah, I think it's really helpful. I mean, we all understand the term habit, right? Like everyone can go, oh yeah, I've got good habits. Yes, I have bad habits, but sometimes we're not consciously aware, or in a science sense, we don't actually really know how habits have formed or why they form. And a habit basically is a behavior that's when we repeat it enough, it becomes automatic. And that's actually the ultimate purpose of a habit, really, is that we want to, as humans, we want to be able to solve problems in life with as little energy and effort as possible. So James Clear, in his Atomic Habits book, which is absolutely fantastic, he actually talks about basically a habit being broken down into a feedback loop that has 4 steps. So we have a cue, which is our trigger. And that triggers basically a craving, which motivates us to sort of engage in that habit. And really that third step to engage is responding. So we respond, and that actually provides us this 4th step, which is the reward we feel, which ultimately is satisfying this craving. And over time, this becomes automatically associated every time that cue shows up. And this becomes, by way of the science side of it, it basically becomes a neurologically wired feedback loop. And we ultimately, it ultimately allows us to automate these habits, which are called habit loops, which really, as humans, that's what we're trying to do for ourselves all the time. It's our brains, like, how can I make it as simple and automatic as possible? And I think in a simplest term, what does that look like? Like, I'll give you my coffee habit example, right? So my cue is I wake up really early to do some work before the kids get up. And my craving is, okay, I want to feel really alert and on. And so my response is, okay, fine, well, I'll drink a cup of coffee. That'll get me going. And the reward is that I satisfy this craving to feel alert. So really what's actually happened there is drinking coffee becomes associated with waking up. So every time I wake up, I am craving like this hit of coffee the minute I get going. Now, I'm yet to work out whether this is serving me well or not, but it's definitely a habit. And I think, look, James Clear, he refers to, a simple set of rules, which we can use to build habits. And I think it'd be good to touch on these today, by way of making it obvious. We need to make our habits obvious. We need to make them attractive. We need to make them easy. And we need to make them satisfying. And his Atomic Habits book it's a really great resource and reference. I really recommend every working parent to have a read. I think just perhaps worthy, just even for this discussion today, is maybe to touch on the making it obvious, because that's the first step. And when we come back to like, how can we engage in habits that are going to serve us well? Like, let's think about how we can make these things obvious for ourselves in the first instance.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, it's a great reference point with some of the working parents that are listening. They've heard the different steps. Let's talk a little bit about those. How to create or get those great new habits going. What do you normally suggest? So you mentioned make it obvious. What else from there?
Yeah, so I think when we talk about making it obvious, that's a great place to start, and we should start there. And there's probably 2 key strategies that I'd recommend, and that I will share with working parents that I work with. And it's really underpinned by the fact that there is a lot of research out there that says when people have a specific plan for when and where they will perform a new habit, they're actually more likely to follow through. So, I'll give you an example. We just so often tell ourselves, yes, I'm going to make healthier family meals. I'm going to listen more intently to my kids. I'm going to start running tomorrow. And then, poof, we just totally leave it up to chance and hope that it will happen. And ultimately, we actually think, down on ourselves that we're lacking motivation, when in actual fact, often we're just lacking clarity. So, and it's not always obvious when and where we can start these habits and where to take action. So I often say, set your plan. This would be the first strategy. So set your plan. And it is as simple as filling out a sentence. I will do this behavior at this time in this location. So for me, as an example, I will help my child with their homework at 5 p.m. for 20 minutes in their bedroom. And I know that sounds so simple, but like in our household, we had a real challenge with like knowing that the homework had to get done. We weren't doing it at a helpful time. It got cut to 3 minutes of homework. It'd end in arguments. We were trying to do it in the living room. Like it didn't work.
Yeah.
So just even setting the plan is really helpful. And the aim with a plan is that with enough repetition, we actually get the urge to do the right thing or to perform that action at the right time every time. And it becomes automated. So that whole, we're going to do homework at 5 o'clock in the bedroom just becomes like part of our family's habits.
I love it. So it's a bit of who, what, where, and when, and getting those repetitions in first. I really like that example. I think I can relate to that homework sort of one.
Yeah. And I think too, sometimes with some of this stuff, it can feel silly going, I'm going to write down, I will do this at this time at this place. But just, if you've got a couple of things that are falling short on you, like involve the kids, involve your partner, just start with one or two of them, write it out together, stick it up on the fridge as a reminder, as a check-in that, we're going to have a plan and we're going to commit to it. The other thing I'll say, the second strategy is habit stacking. And I'm sure a lot of people, again, beautiful work through James Clear and anyone that has, knows much about habits, we know that stacking habits is helpful. So human behavior really does follow quite a predictable cycle. And that is, if you often basically decide what you're going to do next based on what you've just finished doing. So for example, you go to the bathroom, you wash your hands, then you dry your hands. And I know in my case, it reminds me like, okay, I have to put the dirty towels in the laundry and then I don't have any laundry detergent. So you add that to the shopping list and away you go, you get detergent next time. So each of our behaviors becomes a cue, right, that triggers the next behavior. And that's really helpful for us to make good habits. And we can use these connections to our advantage. So if you want to forge a new great habit, work out a habit that you already do and then stack your new behavior on top of it. So again, write down something as simple. After I do this habit, I will do this new habit. So I wanted to start taking a vitamin. So after I clean my teeth, I'll take my vitamins every night. So, or in my instance, another one, like I always miss the sports uniform day for my prep child. So when I put the kids washing away now each evening in their rooms, I get their uniform out for the next day. Good habits are really integral to making our lives happier and easier. And I think when we start thinking about what serves us well and how we can habit stack or how we can set a plan, it's actually, it forms really great momentum to get us sort of doing the things that are serving us well.
I love it. And I think there's a sort of a saying around habits set you free. I guess people sometimes think creating habits or being so regimented is boring. But what it actually does, in the long run, gives you more freedom and time to then be creative. An example that I can give here is every Tuesday at this time, I'm chatting with you for the next, X amount of weeks, and we know what we're doing. We're all organised, and all we have to do is show up. So that's that time commitment, and just knowing on this day I'm talking to you about X, Y, and Z. And it's not a parenting example, but another example might be like getting the kids like play lunch or their lunch is ready, and sometimes then what you do after that, there's a nice opportunity to add a new habit in after you've finished that. In my case, it's the coffee that follows. That's my reward for doing the kids' school lunch. So there's lots of little ways you can kind of hack your day. And I think as a working parent, where we started with this conversation is kind of that overwhelm really, and really by creating habits, and also that quadrant that you mentioned, that exercise there is really a nice way just to zoom out and go what's important and what's important for the kids, and obviously for the parent as well. Poppy, that was fantastic. I'm really I'm kind of motivated now to get away and do this quadrant that you mentioned. So let's leave it there, and I'll chat with you next week. Thanks so much.
Fantastic. I hope everyone's getting their pen and paper out for the quadrants. Great chatting to you. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Catch you later. See ya.